Welcome back to Ponchatoula Live, the show where we make it easy for you to connect with the people of Ponchatoula. I'm your host, Parker Layrisson, and today I've got a guest who's here to tell a fantastic story, a story about Ponchatoula, our signature fruit, our iconic alligator, and much more. And so I have with us John Eason, who's here to talk about Sidewalk Side Spirits, his company, and their signature product, Hardhide Strawberry Whiskey. So, John, welcome to the show.
Hey, Parker, how you doing?
Thank you for being here. Why don't we kick things off before we get into the whiskey and the fun story about how you put that product in place? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Wow. Let's see. I am a longtime alcoholic beverage executive, salesman, chief cook, and bottle washer. Been in the liquor business probably since I was 17 in some way, shape, or form.
Wow.
Back when the drinking age was 18, I worked at a bar when I was 17. Put myself through school, went to Southeastern, grew up in New Orleans with different companies, had different jobs, worked for Jack Daniels for a while, worked for Allied Domecq for a while, worked for a company, Glazer Wholesale, twice in my career.
Yeah.
Did a startup called X-Rated Fusion Liqueur, which the company was sold for a little bit of money. And was the CEO of a very small tequila company, the COO of a rum company out of Puerto Rico. Been doing this a long time. And
it sounds like when it comes to liquor, you've done it all.
Yeah, there's probably not a job I hadn't at least tried.
That's great.
And, you know, all roads lead to this one, right? You have your own company finally. Yeah.
Well, I love that because I grew up with people in my life that were in your industry, one of which was liquor commissioner under Governor Edwin Edwards in the 80s. And that was, you might remember Mike Beachball Russell of Baton Rouge. Well, Beachball was my mom's high school classmate and lifelong dear friend and a good friend of my dad's. And he was my first boss out of law school and just a wonderful mentor to me and a great guy. So when I was traveling with him and the attorney general at the time that we served, we went all over the state. And one of my favorite things to do while we were riding the roads was have him tell us stories about the Wild West days of liquor in the 80s and 90s. And it was just really interesting subject. You know, you mentioned Glazers where you worked. He had a ton of stories about those guys. I think he went to work for them as a consultant afterwards. But I bet that you've really learned a lot in your years doing that. If you don't mind, let me jump back to what you mentioned education-wise, going to school at Southeastern. What was it like coming from growing up in the big city of New Orleans to this college, you know, out in the country in Hammond? What was your first impression, and what experiences did you have there?
Well, I went to Southeastern to walk on the football team.
Oh, wow.
I went to a very small high school in New Orleans. And I think when I got there, I was about 5'11", 220, and had to explain to everybody that I played nose guard. That took a little doing.
Yeah, not your prototypical size for nose guards, right?
No. And of course, all my family was longtime LSU people, you know, so they were trying to understand, wait a minute, why are you going to Hammond? Why aren't you walking on in Baton Rouge? And I'm like, well, one place I know I'll get killed. The other place, I might have a shot. Not that much of a shot, turns out, but I gave it a 2-year run. It was a great experience, and I fell in love with the area, the people. I grew up smack dab in the middle of uptown New Orleans for a while, and then my parents were real estate and construction developers, and they built the suburb of River Ridge. They built maybe a third of that. Subdivided houses and spec homes. So I ended up in the country, and my dad was a twin. So his twin brother, Albert Eason, rose his family here in Ponchatoula. All my cousins went to Ponchatoula High.
Okay.
So it was no big deal, and we were really close. So it was no big deal for my dad to say, come on, we're going to see your uncle and your cousins.
Sure.
And they would always take us to go see the Gator, to go see Hardhide. And it was a nice experience. Yeah. Southeastern was probably perfect for me. Anywhere else, Oh my God, God only knows what the trouble I'd have gotten into. Please remember, this was back when the drinking age was 18 and there was no such thing as the internet.
Right. Well, I can tell you you're right, because I had kind of the flip experience of growing up here, in the country in Ponchatoula, but going to Tulane when the drinking age was 18, and I didn't even know how to act in those grades that freshman year. I went from pre-med to near dead, it seemed like, academically. So I think you made a good choice. And fortunately for me, I was in that class. It didn't seem fortunate at the time, but they changed the drinking age to 21. And they made it retroactive. So they basically took away that right to drink that they gave us at 18. And, you grew up in New Orleans, so all those bars didn't enforce it, but it made it a lot tougher to get in trouble. And had I been down there for a full 4-year run with no throttling at all, it would have been tough. But it's cool that you had the cousins here. Ponchatoula was part of your life experience. It seems like kind of forever. So that's really neat. What was your impression when you'd visit your cousins, your uncle, come here? The Ponchatoula of the era of which you speak was much different than the one we live in today.
Oh, very country. Yeah, very country.
The population was much smaller. What did you think about it?
Well, I mean, I've been all over the world doing different stuff since then. Heck, my impression of New Orleans today, since we've moved back home, is totally different from my impression of New Orleans before I left. I always thought Ponchatoula was this really cool little place in the country and really quick to go hunting and fishing with my dad and my uncle. Everybody was very nice. And my cousins were really really fun, cute girls, and had a lot of fun, cute friends. And, it was never a stretch.
Right.
My graduating class in my high school in New Orleans had 30 people. So it's,
wow.
Yeah, it was very small. So
that
to come over to
reminds me
Ponchatoula
of-
High
Yeah.
was a big thing.
Yeah. Well, coming out of St. Joseph's School, I think we graduated 24, and it was like 16 boys and 8 girls, and they felt like your sisters by the time you got to high school.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
kinda
The
hear
pretty
what
ones
you're
all went
saying.
out
You
with
get to
college
the
guys, right?
fertile grounds of PHS, right?
Not much of a chance. But I really fell in love with Hammond and Ponchatoula, and spent a lot of time. I probably overstayed my welcome in college. I think I was there 5.5 years. But
Hey,
paying the
that's
bill for your
nothing.
own.
My brother Bree went for twice that long, and and eventually went on and got his master's degree, to everyone's shock. But he went part-time while he was working as a cop. And but I've got a lot of friends. One fraternity in Southeastern is kind of synonymous with the 7-year mark, and that's Sig Tall. Everybody calls those guys the 7-year Sigtals, because nobody gets out in 5 years. So don't feel bad about taking that extra year.
Oh no, I actually pledged Sigtal 1 year.
Oh, well, then if you graduated in 5 years, then you were valedictorian of your Sigtal pledge class.
No, I didn't get initiated. I just pledged.
Well, I'll probably get some hate mail for keeping it real. I got a lot of buddies that are Sigtals. I love them to death. But Lord knows none of them graduated in 4 years or even came close. It was like
one
that.
of the guys.
You ever see Tommy Boy? There's that joke. What do you call a guy who went to school for 7 years? Doctor.
Yeah.
That's well, I'm sorry. You were about to say something?
I was one of the guys that brought the Teak chapter back.
Oh, cool.
And the Teak chapter had been kicked off campus for one reason or another. And one of my best friends, Richie Bulott, had some crazy idea to start a fraternity. And to be honest, most of us were all pledging every year so we could play intramural flag football. And back then it was a really big thing. I'm not sure how big it is now, but for some reason we were all into it. And next thing you know, Richie talks 100 of us into starting this Teak chapter, and everybody has to bring in 2 little sisters.
Nice ratio there. I like the sound of that chapter.
And the college had never seen anything like it. It was quite a to-do. And then, of course, after we had graduated, I think they got kicked off the campus again. It's been hard keeping up with the fraternity itself, not the guys. I still see the guys all the time.
Well, my dad's fraternity's like that. He was president of Deke at Tulane in the 60s, and they got kicked off of campus his senior year, which he wears as a badge of courage. He says all the great presidents did that. Speaking of these great old stories, my dear friend from high school, Sharon Miller, still a friend, has chimed in here and says that she loves to hear these stories. Sharon, thank you for watching. I'm glad you commented because it gives me the chance to let anybody watching live know that if you have a comment here, if you'd like to ask John a question about Hardhide Strawberry Whiskey, his career at school or in selling liquor or whatever, feel free to chime in here. We are more than happy to field comments and questions. We love doing that. So if you're watching live, make a comment down below, and I'll do my best to share it with John and post it up here as we did with Sharon. So, folks, again, here we're with John Eason. He is the founder of Ponchatoula Hardhide Strawberry Liquor. And we're talking about, his days at Southeastern and family in Ponchatoula. Before we get into talking about this great product you've got, which I know you have with me and I'm hoping you'll show us, let's talk about the next chapter in your life. Because at the top of the interview, you mentioned kind of going all over and doing everything. So when you left college, what did you do next?
Well, didn't give up that football dream. It was a job offer at Glazer or trying to play arena football in Denver. My fiance back then looked at me like I had three heads and was an idiot. And she was like, well, wait a minute. You don't want to go sell liquor to your friends in the bar business? That sounds like your job. And
sounds like a dream job for most guys that age.
Exactly. And you know what? Everybody was right. I didn't want to leave New Orleans. I loved living in New Orleans. I love that area. You went to Tulane, so I don't have to tell you much about Uptown. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed that lifestyle, right? Bars and restaurants, and all these great places to go, and beautiful trees and the streetcar. I mean, Uptown New Orleans is gorgeous. So I took the job at Glazer, and I worked there for about 5 years. And Jack Daniels offered me a job to move to Dallas. So my boss at the time, who was probably gave me the best advice anyone's ever given me. He says, John, let me ask you, you want my job one day, right? And I said, well, yes, sir, I do. One day I would love to be president of Glazer, Louisiana. He says, well, you're not going to get there from being a salesman. You're going to get to be 6 other things before you're in my job. And they're not paying you anywhere near as much as you would make going to work in Dallas. And then number 2, you wouldn't get the same experience. I myself was a supplier and spent most of my years as a supplier. You need to go get that background. If you're smart, you'll do that. So I took it to heart, and that fiance is my wife, and still my wife today. Yeah. Thank God. And we moved to Dallas. So we were in Dallas for a couple years, and then I got promoted and moved to San Antonio.
Okay. Well, can I ask you something before we get to the San Antonio chapter? Mm-hmm. That boss who gave you that, what sounds like great advice, life-changing advice, clearly must have cared for you to take the time to do that. But also, I'm sensing a selfless streak in his advice, because clearly you're a top performer. He viewed you as a successor type, leadership material. And the advice he gave you essentially, meant saying goodbye, losing one of his top assets. So if you don't mind, let's take a moment, because I think one of the things folks like watching this show when I interview successful people like yourself is the opportunity to get advice from people who have walked a mile or many miles, in their path to success. If you, at this stage of your career, having done all the things you've mentioned, owning businesses, doing all angles in the liquor business, what advice would you give to somebody young like you were back then? And we can do this specific to your industry or in any job. Anybody, they could be selling grain or grass or whatever, you know. But what advice would you give to a young person? Because it strikes me as you're kind of now there, like your boss was, as a big timer in your industry.
Well,
What advice would you share?
You know, don't be afraid to make the move. It's such a big country. There are so many job opportunities throughout the country. You know, people have a tendency to get comfortable where they are, and that's okay. Like I said, I loved living in New Orleans. If you'd asked all my friends, will John Eason ever move out of New Orleans? Every one of them would have told you there's no way. My wife would have told you there's no way you're going to get him out of here. He loves it here. Yet that was sobering advice to me, right? It was like, oh man, I gotta go.
Right.
Oh, you gotta be kidding me. My goal of staying in New Orleans and my goal of going as far in a career as I could weren't going to intersect.
Mm-hmm.
So I rolled the dice and I went. And I didn't just leave one time. I changed, I got promoted and moved to several cities. I changed companies. Heck, I went back to Glazer at one point and was the general manager of Texas for one of their sales divisions. So, you know, it was, you know, taking that leap to other opportunities. And, you know, I got to be honest, one or two of those jobs I wondered if I could do, you know.
Sure, of course.
It's kind of like, yeah, I got to learn this though.
Right.
If I don't learn this, I'm not going to, it's the next one I want.
Yeah.
People want instant gratification, right? You come out of college, where's my
Sure.
6-figure salary? You know, I mean,
Sure.
I only want to work so many hours. I only want to do this.
Yeah.
But
No, I get it. It's not different in the law. You know, when I look at
Yeah.
the course of my career and having had a few different jobs with the state, with the federal government, thankfully for a long time here in Ponchatoula, there have been leaps that were scary, you know, changing practice areas.
Yep.
You know, for me, you know, I've been doing car wrecks and the injury work that goes with that for a long time. But, you know, and I even wrote a book about it. Recently, I started writing my latest book, which is going to be on big commercial truck accidents and 18-wheeler wrecks. And it's a different animal. It's like moving from the shallow end of the pool to the deep end. And the opponent changes, the rules change. And, you know, I was very comfortable doing just car wrecks. And I'll probably always do that. You know, that's where my heart is. I do it because my mom got in one and I saw its impact on her. But my point is I can feel what you're saying, because there's a challenge. And no matter how good you are at any job, there's always, if you're self-aware at all, got to be some doubt. Is this right for me? Am I up to the challenge? If you know in your gut you're always up to the challenge, you're not challenging yourself enough. You're not taking enough risks. So I admire your candor there. Can I ask you a question? How did your now wife, then fiance, react to, you know, not just that move from New Orleans, where y'all thought you would be forever, to Dallas, but then to San Antonio and wherever else you've been? I mean, clearly she's your rock. She's still with you. But
over 35 years.
What advice would you give to somebody who may have to break that kind of news or make that kind of pitch to their spouse?
Well, you really have to have somebody who believes in you, obviously.
Amen.
You know, without my wife believing in me, we would not have made many of these steps. It was not easy to move to San Antonio, where, you know, talk about a culture shock. Wow.
Yeah.
You know, outside of being majority Hispanic, military, medical community, and retired military, that's who lives there. Yeah. And you know, we were just two kids from, you know, I was from New Orleans, she was from Mandeville, and it was just, oh my God, this is weird.
Well, the language thing I hear is so tough there. I mean, my friends that have moved there have told me, man, I can't get a job at McDonald's because I don't speak Spanish well enough. I mean, is that a reality living in a place like that?
You know, it's really not so true. What's kind of funny is, you know, the Juan over there who moved from Mexico is probably 5th, 6th, 7th generation American. Mm-hmm. And he speaks, his English is just as good, if not better than mine. Trust me, when that New Orleans accent starts flying out, and it does come out after a few drinks, or maybe I'm a little mad. Yeah. Trust me, you get a San Antonian who's got the Texican, and then you got the New Orleanian who's got the Yak, and you get them going. Woo, man, that was tough stuff.
I love it.
You know, but really, what was even crazier was the move to Denver, where maybe we had both seen snow once in our life. And,
yeah, right. Wow, talk about a shock.
She couldn't drive the car on the ice and wrecked the car 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
And she had just had our second kid. And you know, here's her husband who has to learn the state of Colorado and has to travel all around the state 3-4 days a week, who is in essence no help with these kids. You know, and you know, she's been, to your point, she's been my rock. I would not be or have had the career without my wife right alongside me. And she left, you know, she is a maritime paralegal.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
yeah, so wait, you brought a maritime paralegal to this landlocked state, a mile high.
No, she was personal injury first.
Okay. So she kind of, like I mentioned earlier, moving a big truck. She moved up into the maritime realm, which is
well, she just went back to work.
Yeah.
She just went back to work in New Orleans after not working for maybe 15 years.
Wow.
Well, you know, hey, it's all hands on deck, right? I'm an entrepreneur now. You know, we don't have all the bennies and the perks and the insurance and.
Yeah, true. When you're a startup, nobody's paying for your Blue Cross bill or anything.
No, right? Yeah. I mean, it's one thing watching somebody else's money go out the door. It's an entirely different story watching all your money go out the door.
Yeah.
You know,
I can relate to that. Well, why don't we talk about that? So, you know, when did you know that you had kind of this entrepreneurial, you know, instinct, meaning that you would leave the cozy world of big, I mean, because you were working for major companies. When you talk Blazers, right, that's industry leader, presumably great packages across the board. When did you kind of decide, hey, I'm going to leave this cush not meaning easy, but cush meaning lucrative world behind and take a big gamble and put my money on the center of the table, my wife's money.
I'll go back before that.
Yeah, please do.
Louisiana people, for the most part, are not what I would call or fit what I would call the corporate mold.
Right, true.
We have no filter.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're very honest and open and truthful and fun and gregarious for the most part, I believe. And when you're sitting there working for a Fortune 500 company in that suite, ooh, that is kind of not exactly the mold.
Right.
Right.
Maybe it's like a glove that doesn't necessarily fit, right?
Right.
Keeps you warm, but doesn't feel quite right.
Oh my God. Allied Domecq sent me to what they call charm school.
Really?
And at the time, Allied Domecq was the second biggest liquor company in the world. And I had to have a personal coach critique me on how I handled myself in meetings, my interactions with people. I mean, it was pretty interesting stuff. I was much bigger then, and you know, still was powerlifting and training heavy and doing all this crazy stuff. And you know, having somebody tell you, you know, you're scary, and when you're not trying to be scary,
right? You're
just excited. And you talk with your hands, and you're from Louisiana, and you know, the yak comes out, and maybe the negotiation might be a little heated, and you know, we're just having fun, right? I mean, we're just talking, but to have an outsider come and go, you know, how do you think that went? And I'm like, oh, I thought it went great. You know, yeah, you know, but you know, maybe you were a little scary, maybe you were too much. You know, wow, okay, yeah. You know, when you start thinking about it that way, I wasn't enjoying the corporate lifestyle of that, of the culture. I felt like, you know, everybody plays golf. I'm not a golfer. Bennett Glazer once told me, Eason, I love you, but if you want my time, you got to come play golf. Nobody wants to go to the gym with you, son. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
My kids watch a lot of cartoons, so I have in my mind this image of Shrek, who we now all know and love, but it's like that act plays great in the swamp with Donkey and all these guys, but when you bring it into the city with your, it's a different animal. I want to share a comment here. We were talking about great women and your wife, and this is one of my favorite women in Ponchatoula, Trisha Nicholas. Trisha, thank you for watching. Every time you comment on the show, I'm going to beg you to come on because I've been trying for years to get you on, and you're so beloved in this community. But I'll turn back to your comment. She says here, John, that she loves the stories, and she's asking about the artwork on the bottle. And so, and she has a second question, which I'll get to in a bit here. But would you mind right now pulling the bottle up so we can, show that, share that? So tell us about that. So we've got Hardhide Ponchatoula Strawberry Whiskey, beautiful artwork. And I know you told me about this off air, but please share with our viewers the whole story there because that's gorgeous.
Yeah, so I thought it was really important when I created this brand for the packaging to be very attractive and to tell a story, right? The artist for this is a gentleman by the name of Frenchie. And I believe it's www.frenchie.com, or you can Google him, Frenchie. He's got a studio on Oak Street.
John, if I may interject real quickly to our producers, if you have the ability to find that and put it in the comments, I'd greatly appreciate it. But John, please continue.
Okay. So Frenchie has a studio on Oak Street off of Carrollton Avenue in New Orleans. He's arguably one of the most famous artists out of the state in years. He's done a lot of the Jazz Fest posters for the New Orleans Jazz Fest. He was the official artist of the NFL. Wow. And I just love his work. What he typically does, if you can remember the name Leroy Neiman used to go to sporting events and he would paint the sporting events live. And he was famous for that. Frenchie will go and follow bands and show up at concerts and do the artwork of, say, the Meters are playing, or any of the famous, local New Orleans jazz bands, funk bands.
Yeah.
Frenchie will pop up and do paintings there. His work is really interesting, and he's a dynamo. He's a character himself.
Well, I love that concept. And Danny Lynn Dennis, our fearless producer, thank you for posting this. So anybody who's interested in Frenchie's work can go to the comments, click on that, and get right there. But the live concept to me is so cool. I've seen, for example, local artist Lane Grigas. We've got some great local artists from Mandy May Poche, who's been on the show, Lane Grigas, who's wonderful too. But I see them go to these weddings and, man, in the course of just one evening, bang out these blockbuster, just incredible works of art. And so to think that Frenchie's doing that with Trombone Shorty or any of the guys you say.
It's really fun. And I need to give credit to and Allie is our graphics artist. So Frenchie did the original painting, which I have hanging in my house in New Orleans. And Allison's job was to take that original artwork and make it work on a label.
Yeah.
And she's awesome too. I mean, she's very
she clearly succeeded. And Trish agrees. She says she loves the label, and she suggests that you should sell them as prints too. That's a great idea.
Funny you should say that.
Am I sensing that maybe coming down the pipe?
We're trying to put together some interesting merch that we can sell on the website and use that money to fund a charitable endeavor somehow based around Hardhide or the Clee Bears' new animal exhibit.
Oh, cool.
So that's coming. I think I gifted you one of those posters
and I'm very grateful for that. It's a beauty. Yeah, thank you so much.
And I think what as soon as we can get an internet store set up, and it's more importantly a fulfillment center, because I can't sit there at my house and send one to everybody who buys one.
Yeah,
my wife would strangle me with that in the living room. But we're looking at doing that in a fulfillment house, and we'll have some cool shirts, some cool hats,
Yeah.
I'll probably work with T Mike a little bit on T Mike Kleber on if there's something he wants to put on there and sell. It'll just be a nice thing. But I do want to sell those prints. They're amazing.
Well, I tell you what, you will sell a ton here in Ponchatoula for sure, because Hardhide is so essential to our community. From being the columnist in the Ponchatoula Times newspaper to being the site where kids would always go and take their photo for their class every year at the beginning of the school year. I remember as a kid when one of the Hardhides passed away, they did a jazz funeral. And then I don't think PETA would approve, but they basically muzzled up the new gator and gave all the little kids kind of rides on the back of the gator. And I was there for that. It's just something that's really important to the people of this town. And T Mike does a great job. The Klebears have just been, at the forefront of the alligator industry forever. I went to school with Jennifer Kleber. She's one of the sweetest women in town. And it's just a great family. So thank you for mentioning them. What else would you like to say about that?
I operated under the radar when I created this thing. And to me, the most important people to sign off on it in the city would have been the Klebears and Mayor Bob. Mm-hmm. And, I sat down with T Mike at the daiquiri bar, and I showed him the whiskey and I told him what I was doing. And then I explained to him that I was going to donate some of the profits to helping care for Hardhide. But more importantly, he was going to tell me where to donate those profits. And that I wanted to start some sort of charitable foundation of which I would not be a part of. I would just put the money in, and T Mike would be the head of the foundation.
Yeah.
We got growing to do before that becomes a big reality, but I can tell you I just donated a bunch of money to be the main sponsor of his new gator exhibit when he opens that, and hopefully ASAP. Yeah. And we got plans to help him do some of that stuff. Mayor Bob was great. I wasn't going to I told him, I said, if you don't like the whiskey, I'll pull the name of Ponchatoula off of the bottle. I don't want to make anybody mad. And he laughed and went home that night and had a drink with his wife and sent me a text at about 11 o'clock at night telling me I was okay.
You got the mayor's seal of approval. That's great.
Well, I didn't want to just put the name on the bottle, and didn't want, you don't want the town not liking the whiskey or being unhappy with how anything turns out, right? Right. I mean, the object here is to do some good. With some of that money, we became a sponsor of the Strawberry Festival this year and sponsored the fest.
That's great.
I'll be one of the sponsors of the Tula Q.
Yeah, me too. So that's great. We'll be up there together.
Yeah.
Let me say this. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry, John.
No. So obviously, both brands that we have, King Cake Rum Cream and the Hardhide Whiskey, both have charitable contributions based off those brands. We do a lot of stuff off the Mardi Gras thing for bartenders in New Orleans, right? So, I believe in giving some of that back. It's not about how many cases I can sell, although I would love to sell 1 million of both. Most of the satisfaction of being a frustrated marketing guy and entrepreneur is proving you're right.
Yeah, right. Well, tell us about that. So, the strawberry whiskey, the Ponchatoula themed whiskey is not your only product. You mentioned you have Gambino's King Cake Rum Cream, right? Can you tell us about that product? And you alluded to kind of the New Orleans connection.
Well, believe it or not, I had that crazy idea prior to COVID. And my partners are a husband and wife who own a cocktail syrup company in New Orleans called Cocktail and Sons. I'm not a distiller. I'm not a formula guy. I'm not a whiskey maker. I'm a spirits marketing and sales and finance person. Right. So I just had this crazy idea, and I saw that. I like Baileys. I like rum chata. Creams are delicious. It's not something I drink every day, but I've got some friends who do. It's just a really wonderful thing. Well, if you go to Mardi Gras and you go in the grocery store, the only thing you can see king cake wise is king cake vodka. That's all I have to say. That's like the most embarrassing bottle of whiskey to own. You know, you a New Orleanian, if you've been to Mardi Gras and you had a shot of king cake vodka. It's the only thing no one ever brags about.
Of course.
Everybody buys a bottle for their party.
Right.
It's mysteriously half empty by the time the party's over, but nobody ever owns up to drinking the shot.
It's the dirty little secret of the Mardi Gras party, right?
So I'm like, I wonder if we could cross a rum cream with a king cake flavor and how it would be. It sounds like it would be delicious. So my partners, Max and Lauren, one of their cocktail syrups was a king cake cocktail syrup. So I had some friends at Rum Chata who owed me a favor. And next thing you know, I sent my guy Max to their distillery and blending facility, and we had a product. COVID hit, and I was running this really amazing, cool little tequila company that got crushed by COVID because most of their business was restaurants.
Yeah.
And, you know, the guys were like, hey, look, you need to furlough everyone. And you know, we don't want you to quit, but we need you to take a salary cut. And we're all taking salary cuts, and we got to get through COVID. It's like, well, I don't want to leave y'all in a lurch. I'll tell you what, I'll do all that, but I want you to let me launch this product without any problem. So it doesn't compete with our tequila. I'm going to use the same distribution network that I built for our company, and let's just see if it works. We were scared to death because Mardi Gras got canceled. We shipped 5,000 cases in a week and a half.
That's crazy. With no Mardi Gras and a pandemic, that's
people
wild.
went crazy. The packaging is so awesome, and the product is delicious. We sold that stuff so quick. If I'd have known, if I'd have had any real guts, I'd have probably made 15 or 20,000.
That's
what
wild.
It was.
No, but I would think that those conditions could possibly be the death knell of your product, right? I mean, the concept of rolling out what's essentially a Mardi Gras liquor without Mardi Gras,
Well, but you know what? There was no Mardi Gras, but that didn't change people's opinions towards wanting there to be.
Sure. But you could give them a little taste of Mardi Gras when they couldn't do the real thing.
There you go. And that's exactly what happened. Gambino's had a great king cake year that year too. Yeah. So, we're on our third year of that and have done over $1.5 million in sales. And really the brand sells 4 or 5 months out of the year. Starts around Christmas and goes through Mardi Gras. Yeah. I shipped it to 44 states last year.
That's amazing.
So not bad for a little seasonal kind of
what you'd think was a little regional product is blowing up across the country.
Everybody loves Louisiana, right?
I mean, Mardi Gras is an international destination, I guess. So I guess it makes sense, but may not be obvious to someone like me out of the industry.
Well, we take it for granted.
Yeah. Oh, I guess you're right.
We also forget there's a Mardi Gras Mobile reminds us there's a Mardi Gras in Mobile.
Yeah.
There's a little Mardi Gras in Missouri. There's a little Mardi Gras in Pensacola. Mm-hmm. And there's a Mardi Gras in Galveston.
Yeah.
So, the brand is spread that way, and it won some awards for taste and some gold medals in some competitions, and it's turned out to be fine. So that success and that money off that brand helped us go create Hardhide.
Yeah. Oh, so that's cool. So that gave you the capital to expand into our little neck of the woods. Well, we've got the link here too for King Cake Rum. KingCakeRumCream.com. It's in the comments. You can click through, and as well as I said, the Hardhide link. It sounds to me, John, like you really love what you do. We're talking here about decade after decade in the liquor industry. You're now doing your own thing. You've got these 2 wildly successful brands. Am I right? Do you love what you do? And if so, what do you love about it?
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I love dealing with people. I really enjoy being, with bartenders and chefs. People in the liquor business as a whole tend to be, pretty gregarious and fun. It's not a boring business by any stretch.
Right.
I eat good, I drink good. I've been to some of the greatest restaurants in the country, some of the best bars in the world. It's afforded me the opportunity to see the country, to see other countries. I really do enjoy it. And I've always been a frustrated marketing person. So it was natural that I tried something on my own first, right?
Mm-hmm.
I really have a good time doing this. And when you make good products, you tend to meet good people.
Yeah. Well, tell us, where can folks get these products? What is it? Should we go to the website? Is there a particular local vendor? If you're in Ponchatoula,
Oh my gosh,
really
everybody! You know what?
How do we get it?
Hardhide is everywhere in Ponchatoula. I mean, you throw
Right.
a rock at it, and it's probably at your favorite restaurant. Rue and Brew, the guys over there have been absolutely supportive. The daiquiris have been absolutely supportive. The district has been supportive. It's kind of everywhere here. All the local groceries have it, as well as the big guys, Rouse's, Albertsons. They've all got it. My distributor, Republic National, has done a phenomenal job on both these two brands. The King Cake kind of disappears for 6 or 7 months out of the year, but it pops up for Christmas, and it stays through Mardi Gras, and then it disappears again. My distribution in Louisiana is amazing. It's shocking to me how fast everybody in Louisiana picked up Hardhide. Most of the groceries won't put new things in December, and our distillery was behind, and that was unfortunately the month that it was ready to go, and everybody just jumped all over it.
Wow. So if you can spring off in a slow month like that, you've kind of struck gold, and you've got a legit, real deal product phenomenon.
And what's going to be great is, it's really going to bring some more notice to Ponchatoula strawberries. We take them for granted.
Right.
I mean, if you talk to people in Florida, they might think they make the best. They grow the best. People in California might have an opinion. They're just on.
No, you're right. We're not the only strawberry capital. I think there are at least 3 in America. So you're right. We do take it for granted a bit.
We take it for granted. And when you look at strawberry whiskeys out there, I have a few competitors, but nobody is 86 proof. And I don't use unnatural flavorings and a chemist and all that mess. I mean, we bought from John Dale Farm, and we
real deal strawberries. That's cool.
That's somebody you should have on the show.
Oh,
Heather from John Dale is amazing.
Yeah, I would love to get them on. Yeah, John Dale, Heather, that whole gang's wonderful. We've got the link here on with the list of where you can buy. So for folks that are interested, and Trisha's got another great comment here that she picked up a bottle to send home with her son next week, and they're going to share it with a friend in Fort Riley, Kansas, and then before they head to Germany. So that's really cool. So they'll know about your product worldwide if they don't already. John, you've been such a gracious guest. I told you I'd get you out in here in about a half hour, and I've kept you 50% longer. So it's probably time we wrap up. But before we go, is there anything else on your mind, on your heart, anything at all you want to share about yourself, about your products, just anything at all?
I'd like to thank everybody who's bought a bottle here in the city, and everybody's been so warm and gracious and charming, and just a pleasure to deal with. The Clee Bears, T. Mike has been phenomenal to work with me on a bunch of stuff that we've done marketing wise. The mayor's office has been very, very supportive. Lenny Zell has been amazing. Jody Bourne from the Strawberry Fest has been amazing.
Great folks.
I'm really lucky that I make good whiskey, and that's why they're all nice.
Well, you're right, because I know those guys, and they're candid, right? If you were pushing crap, Hardhide or not, they would not be for it, and probably be the first guys to kill it, so as not to stain our reputation. So
exactly,
really have a good product.
Yeah, so but it's just the warmth and the friendliness have been fantastic, and my aunt lives in Robert, so I'm up here pretty frequently visiting, and it's just been a lot of fun, and I'm glad everybody likes it.
Well, thank you for coming up here today to share your story, because everybody sees Hardhide Strawberry Whiskey. Like you say, it's in every restaurant, it's in the supermarkets, and it's kind of a big deal to this little sleepy town where we're very proud of our berries and our history and our alligator. But we don't know, most of us have not known until today, hey, what's the story with that? How did it come about? Who's the man behind that? So thank you for sharing all of that with us today. So to our guest, John Eason and Hardhide Strawberry Whiskey, we say thank you. And to the folks who stuck in here with us till the end watching the show, I thank you too. We'll be back next week, same time, same place. Y'all take care.